75 fish pot over there. And when I even come, and when I went, I not even see his pot where it is. The hurricane mash up a lot of the reef that the fish them breed on, and the lobster and all those things. Dean come again and lick it, so it's two hurricane lick it back on one another.
During Hurricane Ivan, I lost my house. It's difficult because you get job out of the area, but it's the transportation to go where that job is the problem.
This is the Blue Mountain here, where the best coffee come off of here. When the hurricane come, the farmer gone back right bang on him face. So we don't have no coffee, no vegetable, we have to start fresh.
Natural disasters such as earthquakes, floods, droughts, and hurricanes are not new to Jamaica. In 1988, Hurricane Gilbert devastated the island. More recently, Hurricanes Ivan, Dennis, Emily, and Dean, as well as tropical storms Nicole and Gustav, have swept through.
Agriculture has been prone to losses, severe losses at times, from natural disasters. Between 2000 and 2010, statistics show that over $16 billion worth of losses were incurred because of these hydrometeorological disasters. We need to get the sector properly positioned to address these issues, to reduce the losses as far as possible.
While the damage caused by such natural events is devastating to homes, personal property, and human life, as well as Jamaica's infrastructure, it also wreaks havoc on rural livelihoods. Especially vulnerable are the island's fishing and farming communities. Even if small farmers and fishers are lucky enough to escape actual damage to their own property and equipment in a disaster, their livelihoods can nevertheless be threatened. Damage to roads and infrastructure may mean that their goods can't get to market or that they can't get needed input supplies and material to start over.
The 9 or 10 months before water time, 79, all the light posts pass over the road. Cover out water. We couldn't drive nowhere back.
When we have hurricane, all our road swept away. That river take control until nothing at all can go over. We cannot go there, neither there. We have to just sit in our community.
I lost like my coffee, my planting, my chicken farm with like 140 chickens, and I lost everything. It's sort of difficult most of the time to get goods during a disaster. All the time we get cut off, so we don't have a road to bring in goods.
Hurricane affect our business, like the amount of customers usually come here first, then coming again through the road is very bad, because they say the product is very good, but the road is too bad.
We have been looking at broadening our horizons in agriculture, disaster risk management and reduction to encompass the whole issue of climate change. It is very crucial because the whole thing of climate change will intensify and exacerbate the possible impacts that will occur from agricultural disasters. Things like floods, things like increased temperatures, droughts, the incidence of pests and diseases. These are very real. We have been seeing changes already, and we need to get on the ball.
Adapting to the negative impacts of climate change and natural disasters is key if communities are going to become more resilient and avoid slipping into poverty. This is a gap that the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO, is addressing through its Strengthening Community Preparedness and Resilience to Natural Disasters in Selected Vulnerable Areas project.
FAO has pioneered in using livelihood-based tools to assess vulnerability for many years now. We have been using this livelihood-based assessment toolkit for disaster risk management, especially in the Caribbean countries.
Therefore, we approached FAO in 2008 to assist us in preparing a national agricultural disaster risk management plan. It allows a systematic approach to assessing how these natural disasters will impact the people. So before you go in and you do an assessment to see what is happening before the event, what crops are being grown, how much livestock, what sort of life situation each person is undergoing. Having documented that, after the event, it's much easier to do a rapid assessment of what has been lost.
I reap one time the hurricane, I have to dump nearly about 1,000 pounds of tomato. It couldn't just ripe and we have none of this straight away. String bean was straight away, scallion gone out, everything.
Prior to our adopting this approach, we would ask people what they had in the ground before, and people would tell you all various things, right? So this is a much more systematic and reliable approach.
In this video, we look at the steps that are involved in using the LBA approach for livelihood planning. We share first why the livelihood baseline assessment LBA process is important. Second, we cover what the LBA includes and what types of information are needed. Third, we look at how to implement the LBA process in your own community, including what steps to follow. Fourth, we discuss what challenges you may expect to encounter. And fifth, how to use the LBA data to create an agricultural disaster risk mitigation plan. A critical component of the LBA process is partnerships. Close collaboration with implementing partners, including the Jamaica Conservation Development Trust, Caribbean Coastal Area Management Foundation, CCAM, and the Disaster Risk Reduction Center, and with RADA, ODPEM, and SDC is needed to make the process possible.
The baseline process seeks to fully understand how people survive, how do they cope under normal conditions and during and after an event. So we need socioeconomic data. Where do people live? How close they are to natural areas that are prone to hazards. We have to understand the risks that are involved in farming or fishing. We need to know how people cope and what are their ideas about hazards and risks.
The different types of information needed in the LBA include social and demographic data, natural assets such as forests, farmland, parks, soil types, and water sources, physical assets such as houses, buildings, schools, and businesses, financial assets such as credit unions, social assets such as partner agencies, skills, and people who can help.
Just me alone. You know, sometimes we might ask two friends and them come and help me out 2 or 3 hours.
What we're trying to capture from the qualitative process is an understanding of how people live, how they cope, what are their perspective on the environment and on farming and on fishing. You might not get all the people's opinion in the community, but you get a sample which gives you some idea of what is happening in the area.
The water here, last flood, as far as you can look, it's underwater. I had a pit that go right here, and I couldn't take it up. And I started dashing it, so long to dash in, and I never pull one, not even one I ever pull. Everything go down the drain.
We have very tough times. But when the water comes, we lose everything over there. Everything.
The livelihoods baseline assessment process has several steps. The first is really a community sensitization.
So we want to sit down and discuss with you what's the best way we can deal with hurricane, tsunami. Everybody knows about tsunami. It is really an occasion for you to talk. Some of the problems you're having, some things will work and some things will not work for you. And that is the idea. We really put those down and we make a plan. At the end of the day, we want a plan for this speech. That what kind of help you need, how we can best help you, working together.
The important thing with the LBA process to remember is that vulnerable places are also livelihood spaces, and that exists all over the world, where people live where they can access a source of livelihood. And so that is why you have farmers living on volcanic soils. That is why you have people living in flood-prone areas, because they want to be close to the river. That is why you have fishers living in coastal communities, because that is their point of access to their livelihoods.
Step 2. Determine sample size.
It was important to establish a sample size to work on. And the overall framework in terms of the ADRM plan establishes a 10% sample.
Step 3. Household survey with community assessors.
We use community-based assessors, people who live in the community, who understand how the community runs and functions, and they are our access points, so to speak. People know them, people will talk to them freely. We selected our community-based assessors, and we trained them how to use the instrument to conduct the household survey.
Step 4. Community mapping.
Doing an assessment, it's physical, it's spatial, it's where people live. It's their relationship to the community, the assets in the communities, the natural areas that are prone to hazards such as gullies, rivers. We have decided in this baseline assessment to actually use GPS, that's geographical positioning systems, to actually locate, map and identify the social activities in relationship to other assets in the area.
And so we can do spatial analysis as well. You can do a lot with that. You can match perceptions of risk to actual existing risk. So people who live in a particular area, how do they view flooding? You know, people who live in a particular area, how do they view a storm surge or something like that? So you can do a lot of that with the spatial, and that is again moving it a bit forward. The incorporation of geographic information into the whole disaster management framework is something that we think is very, very important.
So these boundaries were mapped by you, by people from Old Harbour Bay. They told us where the smaller boundaries in their communities are. Different areas might be exposed to different disasters. Some areas might flood and others may not. So it's important that we understand these settlement areas. Now we also map where the houses are. So we now know. So when you see us walking up and down in the community with our GPS unit, it's just because we wanted to know where people live. So this gives you an idea as to where the houses are in Old Harbour Bay.
Step 5. Interviews and focus groups.
I think one of the most important tools that is used is that of interviews. Then there are key informants, people who have lived in the community for many years and who have a better understanding of the history of impacts of natural events.
Oh, 79, darling, talk about 79. 79, we covered complete. 79. Would run right over it.
We did interviews with key informants, which was very, very good as well. And some of the issues that came out of that didn't come out of the baseline assessment.
I have here now another set of questions that we're going to discuss. And the first one asks you, what types of disasters most commonly affect the agricultural sector in this area?
There are quite a number of methods you can use to get a qualitative idea of how people are coping and how they respond to hazards.
And so it was a very wide approach. If we recap, we realized that we're using geographic information, we're using quantitative data, we're using qualitative data, and we're using a participatory approach, right? So the LBA process was very, as much as you can think about it, holistic.
Step 6. Data analysis.
After collecting all of that information, you are then charged to enter it in a statistical software. So we use both qualitative and quantitative techniques to analyze the data.
Step 7. Validate findings with stakeholders.
When we presented the findings in the validation meeting, because this was open to everybody, and we said that the females were saying this and the males were saying this, that was when everything came together. So the validation meeting was also a source for information, and a lot of information that we wouldn't have gotten came out in the validation meetings. We also spoke with them about some of the findings and asked them, is this true, is this not true? You know, we're telling a lie in your community or not.
We did the survey, and what we're doing now is to what we call validate, or to check with you to find out if the information that we collect is correct. that we have it right, that we don't go put out information that is not true of the community because the data was not collected properly or we didn't analyze it properly. So what we have done is we have gotten the information, we have put it together, so we are sharing it with you for you to tell us whether or not the information we have is correct.
So essentially what we're doing is we're reporting back to you. You are the judge. You tell us if what we are finding or if some of our findings are true.
Validate good and poor practices. Some strategies may be harmful or may risk family livelihoods. By doing the LBA, the positive coping strategies can be encouraged and measures can be put in place to limit the risk of people adopting negative coping practices because they will have alternative choices. Validate communication channels.
One of the things you want to capture is where do people get their information from? Do they listen to the radio? If so, which radio and at what time?
You need to know how would they get information to you via the TV. So they will be putting something over for Cascade. They need you to know what's the best way for you to know. During the news time. Okay, so if they're going to advertise anything, to tell you about anything, it's the news time.
Before the rain starts and all of that, we try to send out text messages and other little information via the media to make farmers be aware and to also notify them and let them know that they can try and reap their produce as much as they can.
The ADRM plan aims to protect lives and livelihood, clearly identifying roles and responsibilities for all stakeholders. It should clearly outline the who, where, what, how, why, and when considerations for preparedness and resilience, and should include a clear work plan and strategy for implementation with key priority steps that the community can take immediately without waiting on outside resources in order to get started. Challenges in doing an LBA.
So the major challenge for us was time.
Well, the novelty of it. Whereas disaster risk management is known and we have made some headway in it. When it comes on to agriculture and fisheries, it's new. And so there is a learning curve of how to apply it to agriculture. That was one of the challenges.
The community-based assessors, because we're using principles of the community, I found that was a challenge. Although we did that in the training and tried to get them to do that, I even had to ask some to go back in the field and to redo questionnaires, because when I looked at them, the information that we really need, all of it is not there.
The data, national census data was not available. Current data was not available. So that affected our ability to triangulate, to compare our findings with the actual wider data sets. The other thing is that different parties are collecting data, but they are doing it with their own dimensions and perspective in consideration. For example, RADA, which is the Agricultural Extension Agency, is collecting data on the basis of production areas, whereas the Social Development Commission is conducting their data survey on the basis of communities. We are now conducting our survey to pull everything together. And so that I think has been a challenge, and we have countered it by using GPS to actually position the information we are collecting so it can be integrated into any of the other areas or types of survey.
The whole thing of the plan that we have been developing, being so systematic and comprehensive, it will identify the key issues, the key gaps that need to be filled. And these have been identified, and we can be guided by these documents now to ensure that we prioritize and deal with the most important issues based on our resource base, so that we can get the best benefit for the country at large.
For the LBA process to be incorporated in a disaster strategy, it's a step forward in the right direction, and it gives the community a say. It's the perspective of the community, it's the voice of the community in every sense of the manner. When you think about the communities having played a role, it's their plan.
Through the FAO-LBA process, the communities of Old Harbor Bay, Rocky Point, Hall's Delight, Cascade, and New Market are well on their way to making their livelihoods and communities more resilient to disasters. They have helped pioneer a way forward that should help to benefit many other communities around the island.
To learn more about how the LBA can help your community prepare a livelihood disaster management plan, contact the Rural Agricultural Development Authority RADA toll-free at 1-888-429-5723.